bad idea. Means they're gonna call on you first.
Right. Where'd you get the card?
The table in the other lobby area just work. I get these up there as I get them. I put them up here for him. Holly first. Ask the.
We have to choose a side?
Holly?
Choose sides. Oh, you give me my card too, please. Thank you.
Yeah, he is.
You guys want coffee? No, what I'm saying.
That we've never experienced.
Yeah, our side, your side.
So it's a double click, it's called order then. This, and then it's item is just basic. Not dialing the wizard room.
Paula.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, good evening and welcome everyone to the Planning Commission meeting of July 12th, 2017. We'll start with roll call, please.
Chair Kurth,
Here.
Vice Chair Porter, Commissioner Huber,
Here.
Commissioner Dew,
Present.
Commissioner Marsh.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, please rise with us while we commence with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a set of meeting minutes from June 14th, 2017 to deal with.
There are no corrections or additions. I move for approval of the.
Second.
A motion by Vice Chair Porter, a second by Commissioner Dew to approve the minutes of June 14th, 2017, a regular meeting of the Planning Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes have been approved.
Okay, agenda item number 1, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Item number 1 is PLN 17-16. It is a request to have a conditional use permit to allow for a private school at an existing church on George Air Force Base, the Southern California Logistics Airport, 17746 George Boulevard. It's at the intersection of George Boulevard and Nevada Avenue. The proposal is being proposed by AA Education, LLC. This building was the base chapel when it was operating as an Air Force base, and in between the transition between the Air Force Base and Victorville taking over jurisdiction of the Air Force Base, the property was sold to the church, First Christian, and they have been in operation there ever since. The proposal by AA Education would have a foreign exchange-based high school there for grades 9 through 12. It would take students in from Asia, mainly China, and have the foreign exchange, have them come here for schooling, which would focus on science, technology, engineering, and math, language, and the humanities. And it would also operate as that F1 student visa program. The location of the church is in the business park zone and is surrounded on two sides by open space and on one side by business park as well. As you know, every project that comes before the Planning Commission has positives and negatives that you can speak of. We did the required findings that the Planning Commission needs to make, that every conditional use permit needs to be made. We did those with both supporting comments and opposing comments because there are some concerns when you have a business park zone in the specific plan, which is the Southern California Logistics Airport, that says that a private school on the airport is intended to be for the use of, that supports the use of the businesses that are out there and the intent of the specific plan, the industrial and manufacturing intent. If this school was for maintenance, aircraft painting, manufacturing. If it was even for forklift driving school, it would probably be acceptable because it would be being done in support of the airport. However, it's a high school for high school students in a foreign exchange program. So it doesn't really fit. So that's the opposing comment. The supporting comment, like the church provided, and the commission has the letters from Pastor Dane Davis and Holly LaPat as well. They read those before the meeting. Their supporting comments are that we've been in operation there for 25 years. This would be a benefit. We haven't caused any harm to the airport in the past 25 years, and we feel that we can continue for the next 10 to 15 years easily without any more interruption, and that this foreign exchange program would be good for the community by allowing those students to live in the communities surrounding the airport, providing those families with income, providing them with being able to view cultural differences from us between the Asians, and would be a benefit overall to the airport and the surrounding community. So I don't want to go through every issue that we put forward in there, but that I felt was the main ones. And if the Planning Commission has any questions for me.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask the director a question. Know of what would be a monetary benefit this program will have for the city of Victorville?
Not right offhand. I imagine that they will take the students around the city. They will eat in the city's restaurants, possibly. They might have family over visiting, might stay in the city's hotels. But no, I don't, I can't see a direct benefit. No.
Thank you, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for Scott? I had one, Chris. I can't find it right now, but I remember reading about a deed restriction affecting this parcel. Do you?
Yes, they referenced that when they bought the property, the Air Force had placed a restriction that for future use of the property should be community-based. And I believe we put that in our findings as well, and that can be argued both positively and negatively as well. Is a high school that's accepting mainly foreign exchange students a community-based use? Not necessarily. They're not coming from this community. They're not coming from the surrounding community. So that works both ways.
This, in the future, if a property like this that had that kind of deed restriction was to change to business park or full-on airport operations type use, how would that deed restriction be?
I don't think it would be an issue at all, because the property owner who buys the property would be willing to get rid of it, and the city would be supportive of that.
Okay, thanks. If there's no more questions, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. I have a handful of cards here for people to speak, so I'll start with Holly LaPat.
And I'm here to represent Pastor Dane. Back that off a little bit. Pastor Dane is on vacation and couldn't be here, but I did bring some images that show the current condition of George Boulevard to give you an idea of what our church has been up against in functioning on these grounds. First Christian Church was founded downtown in 1925. In 1994, 2 years after the base closed, we purchased the base chapel and moved to George Boulevard. For the first 15 years at the property, we had some success attracting families to our church. To get to us, visitors had to drive a half mile through a ghost town, but at least the city kept the George Golf Course open and kept watering the greenbelt alongside George Boulevard. Sadly, in the past few years, the city has closed the golf course and discontinued all watering alongside George Boulevard. Today, if you drive that half mile from Air Expressway to our facility, maybe we can get a look at the road here, you'll see dead trees and dilapidated, vandalized buildings. Needless to say, attracting new church attenders has grown increasingly difficult. We put welcoming signs along George Boulevard, but it's hard to compete with the city's big red signs that read, "Keep out, no loitering." Still, FCC continues to serve the community. We're active in the Victor Valley Chamber of Commerce. We host one of the Victor Valley Rescue Mission's weekly food pantries. Every summer, we work with some 20 different churches, nonprofits, and local businesses to distribute backpacks of school supplies to low-income children in the area. This year's backpack giveaway is next Thursday, and we'll be giving away 1,000 backpacks. Long story short, First Christian Church has a positive impact on Victorville, and it's good for the city to help us stay viable. But with utility costs climbing and George Boulevard deteriorating, we struggle to stay viable in our current location. In order to pay the bills and continue our ministries, we looked for a partner to help shoulder the cost of our facility. 2 years ago, we listed the building for lease, and later that year for sale. A half dozen churches have looked at our facility and liked the building, but most wouldn't make a reasonable offer because of the neighborhood. If we could maybe switch to another one of the pictures of the neighborhood, yes. Then this past December, an international school offered to buy the building at full price and allow us to stay there for 6 years rent-free. They made this generous offer because they wanted to partner with the church to have a Christian influence on their students. The proposal seemed like a godsend. A number of underemployed residents could be blessed by a modest income from serving as host families, plus there would be substantial income from the jobs created by the school. And the school's ownership of our building would lighten our financial burden, not only making us financially viable in our George Boulevard location, but freeing us to do better ministry. I believe it would be wise and prudent for the Planning Commission to approve AA Educational LLC's application for a conditional use permit, because having this school operate at our facility would be good for our church, good for the incoming students, and good for Victorville citizens who will have an opportunity for employment and supplemental income. Realistically, the master plan to transform George Boulevard into an industrial park is at best 15 years in the future. Meanwhile, let's work together to make the property on George Boulevard as prosperous as it can be in the near term. Please allow our church to partner with the school to make our facility a true oasis in the ghost town. As the Apostle Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 10:31, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Thank you.
Roy Estabrook.
I'm going to speak from here. It's loud enough, yeah. So first I want to say thanks, Chris, for summarizing the issue. It helped to get a baseline like that. You didn't really mention the scholarships that we have available for local students to attend the school. And it may seem like not a big deal, I suppose, in that there's a lot of schools that students can attend. This would be the only private school in the area. And what exactly does that mean for the students or the community? In STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. The engineering is, I think, a really key difference here. Engineering in secondary and even at the junior level college is virtually non-existent. And this school is poised to have excellence in engineering.
Address your comments to the commission there.
So what this means for the community is that gifted students that should be bound to top engineering schools, colleges, and universities would have an ability to have an excellent footing to compete in that very, very competitive area. I've already been involved with 2 students that one was accepted at MIT and one at USC. And it's a big deal getting into these engineering schools. And the AA school is poised as a private school to do an excellent job of helping the students that get the merit scholarships to be able to attend that. So I just want to bring that up.
Thank you. Shauna Nowicki.
Good evening to the Planning Commission. I wrote a statement for you guys that I'm going to share with you today. I'm here today to address the issue of the sale of our church building. I'm here on behalf of First Christian Church to ask you to approve the sale of the church building to the International School. While we are not a big congregation in terms of numbers, I believe that the work that we do and the services that we provide the local community are mighty. We have a food ministry, as Holly mentioned, that provides food to family in needs. We partner with others, sponsor the backpack outreach yearly, hold vacation Bible school. We provide youth services. with alternative, positive things for our youth. These services make a difference to the local families within our community, and all these services have been provided for years to the community at no cost. Again, we talked about the financial impact it has on the church. We're all aware that the location of our building is not the most desirable. Our pastor often jokes that next to the signs pointing the way to the church are much bigger signs warning of no trespassing. I have attended FCC for almost 3 years now, and I remember that when I first started attending, I felt like I was driving through a war-torn city. You look to either side of the road, and it's like, this cannot be the United States of America. So I really think it's just plain ugly. I will admit that when I first heard of the school wanting to buy the building, I was really intrigued, especially an offer that would allow us to continue to provide the services that we provide to the community for the next 6 years. That is a huge thing. So I believe without a doubt that this is an answer to all of our earnest and sincere prayers by Jesus. I was surprised to learn that the city had to approve the sale of the building, and I have to admit that I was unaware of the politics or the impact surrounding the issue and what will dictate your approval. I am asking you to approve it for the following reasons. Again, I believe it would be a help to the community. It would allow us to keep our local youth engaged in a positive way. We'll still provide all the services that we have, and we've already talked about the benefits that the school could bring to us. The building being in the area that it is makes it hard for us to grow. And we hope, and for the 3 years I've been going there, I hope every day that maybe the city will come in and remove some dead trees or tear down the buildings. And I know there's other issues involved in that, and I know that the cost is substantial. This is a way for us to continue to maintain what we've been doing and still outreach the community. And for me, that's huge, because even though we're small in congregation, we still come and we're still faithful there. So that's why I ask you to consider the benefits to the community. And we see empty buildings all the time. If our building can be used the 5 days a week for the school and it can be used on the weekends, why would we not do that? It's going to support financially the local families in the community that need that income, maybe to, help supplement their financial, in their families. So I personally ask that you would consider everything aside from currently what you would see as the financial gain to the city of Victorville. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have another card from Luis Castillo.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, go ahead, Louis. I was just going to point out that, Shauna, the city is not involved in the sale of the property at all. So this vote has nothing to do with whether the church sells the property or not. It's this approval tonight is for a conditional use permit for a school to go in. Sure.
Thanks, Chris.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me up. My name is Luis Castillo. I'm a school principal of Vermont Christian School, and we've partnered with AA to help them run this school. We're a highly academic school. We only have 50 students, but of our 50 students, last year, $475,000 in scholarships were offered to them from various universities. So we're highly academic. There's a correction to make on the agenda under option A, item 2C. It says that 20% of the students from the local school population will receive scholarships. That's right, 20% of the local students. That does not limit the number of students that will come to this school to 20%. 20% will receive a free scholarship. And the way that that's going to be done is, this is not just an F1 school. I have an F1 school. 80% of my students are local students. 20% are from Nigeria, from China, from India. And their tuitions allows me to give scholarships to low-income students. And those that are academically high get a free tuition. And not only that, but they get a good education. So My thought is that this would bring monetary gain to the community because every high school graduate and every college graduate is an asset to a community. And so if we can graduate students, now I just have one more thing to tell you. Some people think that private schools only take the best students. I've taken students that have been expelled from public schools. And since we're a small school and we can focus on students, on kids, that's what we're talking about. I brought some pictures, but I don't know if we have time. But I have students that graduated and are now going to college that had been expelled from public schools. So it's not only the upper echelon that we get, and that's not actually everything we want, but this is a perfect partnership. These are students coming from outside, paying for scholarships for kids from our community. So it's a win-win. And as far as being surrounded, on that picture that you see there, there's a park. It's a beautiful park on the left side. And on the south side, I guess that's the south side, the north side, excuse me, there's a gym. And I don't know, when you tear the place up, whenever you decide to build your industrial park, you might decide to leave those areas alone because it'd be a great little haven to have people. By the way, people from that airport would probably bring their kids there because it's such an easy drive. They drop them off and pick them up right after work. But so I will be helping to run this school. I'll be the principal until we get adequate staff. We'll be training them. We are accredited, an international accreditation, and we've been a model school for 6 years in a row. So I recommend that you accept that. It'll be an asset to the community and a blessing. Thank you.
Mr. Castillo, I had one quick question
Yes,
for you, since you're on the educational side of the
Yes.
things. Was just curious, when
Yes.
Students come from foreign country
Yes.
and go through your high school
Yes.
program, hopefully move on to college, university,
Mhm.
Do those students tend to get their citizenship and stay in this country and work, or
Well,
what have you seen?
Yeah, both sides. They cannot stay. They have to go back to their country and apply. But people that have those kinds of grades and those kinds of things, they have a pretty good chance of coming back because they're skilled. They have the education. They have the tiebreaker is the mathematics. So basically, number one in the world in mathematics is Beijing. Number two in the world is Shanghai. When they come and our kids work with them, guess whose grades go up? Well, their grades go in English. They go up. But that's a mixed thing. Some just go back and continue to work in their countries. Some decide they want to come back and stay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Christy Roddy.
Hi, my name is Christy Rader. I'm a current employee at First Christian Church as their children's ministry secretary. I work there part-time. I am also on the county's Welfare to Work program, and putting a school in like this at that facility could possibly provide me a job as we look to and add jobs to the community and take us off public assistance. We could also house a child in our home. I have 3 teenage boys, so something like that would work perfect for us. So it is a help to the community. It may not be a help to thousands of people in the community. It may not be a help to hundreds of people in the community, but it's definitely a help to many people in the community as this church continues to grow. As the school continues to grow and more students come in. Plus, it is a school that I would consider putting my own children into. But a couple of the things I wanted to say is that by having the school site there, right now, you can't really tell from this picture, but one of the pictures that was up earlier showed some of the dilapidated buildings. And we have a very active youth group on Friday nights, and so I happen to be at that facility late on Friday nights, and it's not the best place in town to be. There's a lot of vandalism and crime that happens, but by putting the school there, you're talking 6 days a week guaranteed that people are going to be on that property. And when you put people onto the property, that's going to keep crime down on the properties surrounding that area. Whereas if this sale doesn't go through and for some reason the church has to leave because we financially cannot sustain that building, that's one more vacant building you're looking at in that area. So I wanted to bring that point up. Also, I don't know a lot about conditional use permits and stuff like that, but there is a school right across the street. It's not currently operating. I believe Adelanto is using it as a training center, but it is a school. It was redone as a school just within the last 2 years. So when you talk about this being planned for the industrial zone, I'm a little unclear on how we can have a school on one side of the street and this not being able to be a school on that side of the street. So that could be just my ignorance there. And I just wanted to once again mention that this will create jobs and give a place for our children to go to school. And that's what I have to say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rader. Chris, do you have any insight on that question that we just had regarding another school across the street?
Sure, it was the school for the Air Force Base. It was there, just like the church was there for the Air Force Base, that school was there for the Air Force. And when it transitioned, Adelanto School District, that is the school district boundary for Adelanto, so it became an Adelanto School District.
Okay, so that would not have triggered a conditional use permit 2 years ago?
2 years ago?
Oh, I didn't. It sounded.
We did it 2 years ago.
School that's up right where the picture is, where you see just below it are those two schools.
Right. I aware that they changed them.
The aviation school, I believe, came through.
Go through a conditional use
But
permit?
since Adelanto School District's a state agency, probably never came through. It's a public school.
Yeah, so it sounds like if there was a use change like we're seeing tonight, where technically in our municipal code it says it's a church, but it's changing to a school, and a school is technically a different use, that does trigger the CUP, and we may have seen another CUP if there was a trigger on one nearby, but I don't remember, and actually that's why we're here, but I just wanted to, if there was a solid answer, I wanted to get that to you. So is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please come forward. And sir, we'll just ask for your name and your address for the record.
My name's Mike Smithberg. I'm the trustee of the church. I've met Mr. Lee and Miss Bonnie. They're both great people. I don't understand. They say they can't give the church to a school. It has to be used for a church. It's still going to be used as a church. Their students are going to come in and interact with our kids. We have great kids. They can work, they can benefit those kids, they can benefit our kids. My niece was an English teacher who happened to go, who happened to go back to China to teach the kids English to come here. She said the kids were so enthused about coming to the United States, it's unreal. It sounded, one of your questions sounded like you were asking if they stayed here, or if they got the education here, were they going to stay here? It's almost like the military. You don't want to train them, then have them go somewhere else. I think if we gave them the education, gave them the opportunity, showed them what the American way was, they want to stay here. It's just a no-brainer. Knowing these people I'd met Mr. Gonzalez, I think it was, and they seem like they're really good people. They seem like they know what they're going to do. They got a plan. We're going to go ahead and go forward. Me, as you can see, all these pictures makes our area look like just garbage. We go up as a church up and down George Boulevard, cleaning it. If we have the church or the school with us, we can just beautify the whole area. It's a benefit to everything. We shouldn't let this stop just for something minor as, is it a school? Is it a church? It's going to be both. It's going to benefit everybody. There should be no reason this should not go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, sir. Would you be able to fill out a card just so that they have your testimony on record? Is there anyone else that would like? Yes. Yes, ma'am. If you could grab a card real quick, you can fill it out after.
Yeah, Yes, thank you. My name is Eliza Tejeda Bowser, and I have been familiar with Pastor Dane and the church for probably 15 years. And it's interesting because my past, before I became disabled, is I was a realtor and also a lender. So I'm a little bit aware of variances and things like that and change of zoning. And one thing that I don't think was mentioned, unless it was mentioned before I came in, was the fact that there recently has been significant Chinese investment in the city of Adelanto, and I believe it's a cookware company. And they're bringing in, I believe, right now 250 jobs with the potential for more. So these Chinese businesses are bringing in not only business, investment, but they're also probably going to bring in families. And I know a while back when the base closed, I know the significant impact that had on the community. Very detrimental. Properties lost money. People were forced to move elsewhere, lose their homes. We had a lot of FHA repos during that time that I did loans on. And I'd hate to see that happen again. On the contrary, you have a school that wants to come in and invest money in a property that could bring potential business owners from China to invest here in the United States. And I know for a while they were offering visas for Chinese investment. And, you know, when we look at the global economy, we have to realize that China does have a big pocket of money for investment that we don't have. Granted, we don't want our business going to China because we want to keep our people working, but all being said, you know, it's a win-win for the community, not just for the church. You know, the church can always survive wherever and however we have to do that. But not only do they provide significant outreach for the community, but I think in this case, yes, if you build your industrial park, you know, these people are going to have families. You know, they're going to be looking at what can the city of Victorville, Adelanto, Apple Valley, what can that provide for their families? Why should they come here as opposed to other cities? And, you know, one of the reasons I know that the school gave for investing here in our area was affordability. And also, you know, we don't have some of the problems that the LA area has with nightlife and such. They felt that it was a safer community for their students to come to, okay? And so that being said, you know, they would be able to provide a lot to our community that we really have to consider from a business aspect. And yes, there are quite a few other schools and things operating, Excelsior, one of them, which is a charter school, you know. So I think that, you know, the council here really has to take a look at that as well, if that hasn't been mentioned. And you might want to look up the Chinese investment. I believe it's Core Cookware or something of that nature. I wanted to bring in the article, but I didn't really have time to look for that today, and I apologize for that. So, again, I thank you for your time, and I'll fill out the card.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to us?
Hi, my name is Carla Estabrook, and I normally don't speak in front of people whatsoever. I fail to see sometimes when you were mentioning that the airport was requesting people that could paint and things like that, the airplanes. What's wrong with real education? Something that we're training engineers, we're training mathematicians, we're training people that for higher education, and even the airport could use higher education in some of their development. They need engineers, they need people that can design things and do things. And I wasn't sure why they were, how do I phrase it? Like they were saying that the airport needs painters and they need other, what was it all? they needed mechanics and things like that. They also need engineers. They also need mathematicians and people so it would benefit the airport as well, just in a roundabout way.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'll bring it back to the commission for any questions and deliberation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would like to have the first person that spoke and the superintendent to address a couple of things.
Yes, I'll open up the public hearing, and I believe would it be Ms. Lapat? And
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. And the superintendent.
And the superintendent.
Me too?
Oh, okay.
Together? Yes. Thank you.
I think he's got a couple of questions or comments.
Very good. I want to thank you for your activity regarding the church involvement there at former George Air Force Base. I, like so many others, was stationed at George Air Force Base for 3 years. I worked was a medic working in the emergency room. And I have great fondness regarding my service there. One of the things that following the transition from an active Air Force base to what it is today, as you know, may know about the history of George Air Force Base once it closed. After considerable, dissertation, finally the city of Victorville maintains its control. Within that, the expectation of the citizens, which is approximately 125,000 people, the expectation is that the city of Victorville would ensure that the former George Air Force Base will become an economic boon for its citizens, all 25,000. I can't say today that we meet that match. In fact, we fall short. But as the staff have indicated in their in option B, I'm somewhat find it hard to go against what the overall arching goal is versus what it is that you want. I have every respect and every regard for church and state. I belong to a church. I'm a Christian. But as it relates to my responsibilities, I am looking further regarding the big picture of former George Air Force Base. And with that said, I have an alternative because I like alternative. I don't know if you're aware, but the Victor Valley Union High School District served on 2 boards in the Victorville. The Victor Valley Union High School District has an exchange program. Dr. Ron Williams is the superintendent of that school district. I know one of the board members professionally and personally, and one of the things I think can possibly work out is a partnership with the Victor Valley Union High School District. I'm not going to ask you what your thoughts are of other educational institutions within the city of Victorville or the Victor Valley. I do know this for a fact, that everything that we can do as relates to educating our youth, we should do. So I commend you for your efforts regarding what you give input to our students. Additionally, I would say that I was growing up, and the expectation for me was to be a strong contributor of my society. My competition was my next door neighbor. That is not the case today. For anyone who's 18 or younger or slightly older, their competition is around the world, and the expectation is no longer to be a strong contributor of our society, but in fact to be an ambassador of the world. So as someone who knows something of education, I was stationed in Taiwan for my first 3 years when I was 21 years old in a foreign country very close to China. And so I know something about the Orient and the rest of the world because I have lived and worked around the world. And so I want to share with you that as an option, and if I can find any other option or alternative, I'd be happy to facilitate that. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I'd like to see if there's any more discussion, questions, comments. If not, I noticed that in the letter by Ms. Lapat, it was mentioned a possible time frame on a CUP. That's something maybe the commission would like to discuss or look into. Feelings from staff, that kind of was a thought when we look at, is this a fit now? Is this going to be a hindrance for future projects, future growth, the master plan of SCLA? But in the interim, we've heard a lot of testimony. We all know it's real rough there. The growth is a little bit slower. We hope it comes sooner than later, for sure. But is there a happy medium, does this commission think, and maybe we could put a time frame on, a reasonable length of time frame for this CUP to either come back and be readdressed in another year, in a decade, whatever it may be. Feel a little bit more of a comfort level on not saying that this could affect for forevermore, I guess. Any other thoughts to something like that? I don't have a specific time frame in mind. If that ended up being something the commission thought about, I would like to hear just thoughts on that from staff on anything that we may be missing, or any suggestions on links that.
That's totally up to the Planning Commission. That letter was from Ms. Lapat, who is with the church, so that is not the school. So I don't know what the impact of 6 years on a school when their program's 4 years long. I don't, that would. The chairman would have to open up the hearing again to allow you to speak, but so that would be a concern. That too short a time frame. Is it worth it for the school to come here, establish, and then possibly get kicked out in 4 years? They've only had 2-3 graduating classes by then. That would be probably, I would imagine, difficult on a school to put that amount of investment in.
The other concern that I did have was the amount of decibels that you may experience. Not experience it right now. Well, in some places, it's just short of 65 decibels, and that's enough to cause a hearing loss. And conscientious about that because of, you have aircraft going in and out of there, and hopefully there'll be a lot more that go in and out of there. And I equated it to LAX. They built that out in the boonies, and then people built houses around it. And then the next thing you know, they were suing the LAX because of the noise level. Conditional use permit on it. I don't amount so that it could come before this commission, so it's not a problem. We don't want to start a problem.
I would like to open the public hearing one more time and see if there's a representative that would like to speak to a time frame possibly. I know one side maybe can speak for the school, the other side might not be able to speak for the church. But if it does come down to something like a time frame and then readdress, I want it to be reasonable. I want it to make sure that it does work for the parties. So I'll open up the public hearing. Would you like to speak, ma'am?
My name is Bonnie Kwong, and I'm representing Mr. Lee and speaking up about this time frame that you guys just mentioned, and we discussed about this. If it's all right with the commission that we utilize property for 15 years and with a deal with the city to sell it back to the city at market rate with a discount.
What, has that ever been discussed in the
No,
past
that's
with
the 15-year use, right? So after the 15-year, when we're occupying the building and using it with this conditional use, the city's going to eminent domain back the property for...
I don't think that's the intention, and
Okay.
and this body would not be able to make any kind of sales deals
Okay.
on
Yes,
behalf of the
but
city.
you mentioned the 10
But
years.
what we were talking about basically is, since this is a conditional use permit,
Mhm.
it's not used by right.
Mhm.
It does take a vote of the commission, and then it's you've got that use, you've got the right, all the rights to have the business license. Do your business. The church is already there; they're already in.
Yes.
One of the conditions that could be put on a conditional use permit is a time frame.
So the 10-year use reverse back to...
It could be 10, it could be a 15, and then what happens is the conditional use permit expires, and we can put possibly language in it that said that there's a chance for another extension, but it would need to possibly come back before this body again to take a look at it, just in case things have developed speedily out of there, and there is a lot more traffic. The business park, all the effects, all the reasons that you would look at a conditional use permit. I think that was the intention that we were talking about. If there was to be a time frame, was to come back, take another look at it, but that may be it in 10 or 15 or right.
So after the 15 years, when the commission decides not to extend the conditional use, what happens to the property? It reverts back to an industrial use zoning?
It doesn't revert back to that. It's that now.
It is that
just
now.
means that your use would leave, and then the next use in there would comply with the zone district.
Okay.
Or it could be reapproved.
Or it could be reapproved.
It could be reapproved. The property could be sold. You could sell the property in 2 years.
Yeah. Can I, Louis?
Question would be, are you going to, in 10 or 15 years, take
Luis,
the
can you
church
speak
back?
into the microphone? Just
Oh, I'm
make sure
sorry, I'm sorry.
therefore we have it on the record.
Then in 10 years or 5 years or 6 years, then will you take the church back? Will you take their permit back? Or is it just going to be the school's permit back?
That would be part of the issue. Yes,
Yeah.
Staff would recommend that both uses be looked at the same time. Sure, because the impacts are the same on both.
Yeah, well, they've already got a permit right now, and I think it's it's a conditional use permit, and you could revoke it at any time, I think, right?
No, they don't. They predated the city, so they're just non-conforming.
Right. So by accepting this, they would now accept a time limit on their conditional use permit.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and we've seen that before. This when we've done conditional use permits, it's quite common on certain cases that there is a time permit. And I believe if that was to happen in this case, it's because there could be growth that could be sensitive to this in the future. Okay, so there's three choices basically in this commission. Just approve it as is forever, for however long, whatever happens to that airport or growth or noise or business park. Just absolutely let it go forever. Or the second thing is it's denied, sorry. The third thing is maybe there's a time period.
Yeah.
And then readdress.
Yeah. The thing with the school is our school's been operating since 1977. I took over 12 years ago when I retired. I was a public school employee for 30 years. 5 of those were in district administration. And I know about a school, and I know a school has to gain a reputation. It doesn't just happen. It grows. It grows with its reputation. And in order to graduate students in an interim of 6 or even 10 years is a very difficult proposition. The other thing is that I know that the day the city needs that property for something or another, they'll come along and condemn it, and it's done. In other words, they'll just do eminent domain, and there's a bigger project here. So your power is there, the cities. I'm talking about the city, not yours, folks. But the city has power to do what it needs to do in that area at any time. The one thing I do see there is it's an oasis in a blighted area. And I can't see, like the lady said a little while ago, if the church goes under, you're going to have a totally blighted area for a long time.
And I think that's not even an issue. We know that.
Yeah.
It really
and
is.
by bringing the school in,
we
give
them.
them.
I think what we're
life.
looking at, sir, is we opened it back up again. Is that a possibility that the church and the school would consider? I just heard you say maybe 6 or 10 years is too short. Would you?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're deciding right now, but would you consider a 15?
I'd consider an 18.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to comment. It seems like, from listening to the discussions going back and forth with that, it seemed to me like more like negotiations than anything else. And I think it would probably be prudent to have a continuance to address what your suggestion, what you're proposing as to what they want and what they may settle on. So I think this would probably require a continuance.
What would we get at in the meantime? Would we?
What's your suggestion as to what they want?
Maybe give them a chance to go back and discuss deeper with their.
Well, their pastor is not here. I don't know what other members, whether other trustees are involved. I have no clue, but I don't think it would hurt to have additional time, additional input. I'm not opposed to that.
Since the public hearing is open, if I would like to just ask both sides real quick, if this item was continued, is that going to hurt you? Would you rather have it heard tonight, right now, or is there some time flexibility, and do you need to speak with other folks on this? And would you agree also? Or would you like to hear it tonight?
I'd personally like to see it done, but a couple things I'd like to...
Hold on. Just hold on. I'm just trying to get to an answer. If there was a continuance, I don't want people's mouths to go, oh my gosh, we just lost our deal. There's a time frame on an escrow or something like that. There is a time frame.
Well, as far as the school, our plan was to open in September, till next September.
Would the consensus be to hear it tonight? Okay. Is that... We're going to have to make a vote. We're going to... At this point, there's a couple options on the table. We can vote this project down that it's just not going to work for the CUP. We could put no time limit on the conditions and let it go, or we could put a time limit on it, or we could vote for a continuance. Are we ready for a motion? All right. I think the public hearing's still open, so if you could make it quick.
Just real quick. To address Ms. Paula's concern about the decimal and the planes. The way the planes take off, and if they do future industrial things, the buildings will block the noise from the church. Where this picture is, and I keep staring at this picture, you can see where our church is. You can see the ball field and the park. I just keep imagining if this school came in and the partnership we can have, that whole section right there would be green. They'd put your tennis courts back in, get them working. That park would be just put up so good, soccer fields that people from the neighborhood can come into. There's a whole bunch of benefits to this. I think what should be done is, I see your conditional thing, put them on a 15-year thing, conditional thing. They're going to blow your mind away what's going to happen in 15 years. 15 years come down the road, you're going to renew it with no problem. What this school is going to do, it's going to amaze everybody and stuff. That's right there, that little picture, that triangle, that's going to be a green oasis in the desert.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go. Is it something else that hasn't been addressed?
I just had a question regarding the 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I did personally have a conversation with Pastor Dane Davis.
Okay.
And I know he is aware that was a possibility.
Okay.
Roy can speak to that as a church elder.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to bring it back for some discussion or a motion.
Adopt resolution number P7. Subject to attached conditions of approval. All the conditions. Add a condition that
18 years. Okay.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Huber, a second by Vice Chair Porter, to approve PLN 17-00016 with an additional condition of approval, condition adding an 18 review period. So the conditional use permit will expire in 18 years, but will come up back to the commission for review.
And is there special language on that? Is like without, I remember back when we'd done it before, without prejudice, or the fact that it won't just expire?
It'll.
You said it is confirmed that it can come back for review.
Well, any conditional use permit with an expiration date can come before you for a renewal. You're kind of saying if that you want that to be part of your motion, then yes, that can be worded into the condition.
Well, if that's automatic in the normal standard procedure, then we're good, I think. So, sorry to butt in on that.
So I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you. That project has been approved with an 18-year conditional use permit. Review after 18 years with Commissioner Dew opposing the project. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here and spending your time and giving your comments. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee wasn't perfect, but yeah.
I'll be right there, just a second.
Yes, sir.
Your wife's Barbara, isn't it?
Yes. West of Del Sol.
She's on the
high school. Second grade. Okay.
I always see her there. That's what.
Pleasure to meet you.
That's not the best.
They got the best.
Thank you.
You too.
Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 2, please.
Thank you, Chairman Kurth, fellow commissioners. Item number 2 is case PLN 17-19. It is a site plan to allow for the addition of an approximately 7,560 square foot steel building and other site improvements to an existing fuel storage facility with an environmental exemption. This is located within the Old Town Specific Plan at 16640 D Street. The applicant, Beck Oil, is requesting this new steel building to be located at the rear of the site against the railroad tracks. Additionally, the existing building at the front of the site will be remodeled and include an additional expansion area of 592 square feet of office area. Also, the applicant proposes site improvements to beautify the streetscape with a new landscaping and new fencing, as well as new parking lot and other general cleanup items. A review of the application indicates that it meets municipal code standards as well as Old Town Specific Plan standards. The staff recommends approval as conditioned, and we're available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions to the staff on number 2?
I do.
Yes.
What were the safety concerns since it being the structure being so close to the railroad system or railroad tracks?
Well, we route this as a public hearing to BNSF as well, but since it's on their private property, we haven't historically had any issue with being able to build up to property line. They're required to mitigate any drainage on site, so we're not aware at this point of any interference with the railroad.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing on agenda item number 2. Is there an applicant or anyone that would like to speak to us?
Hi, my name is Tracy Dudart. I'm with MOA Architects. My client, Corey Beck. And we're here to answer any questions. We don't think we have any issues at this point.
Well, say that my project, suppose it cost about $250,000, but with all of the added requirements, it's up to over $500,000 for first phase. And I was a little surprised to find out that you're requiring that I install a fire hydrant. I discovered this yesterday. One street corner, apparently you require a fire hydrant within 50 feet of a valve that operates water suppression systems for buildings, and you require suppression, fire suppression for this building since we're storing petroleum products on it. There's no way to avoid having this requirement, I suppose, is there?
Sure, any of us commissioners are experts on fire control, but
No, there's not, and I wouldn't recommend us trying it either. So if you'd like, I mean, with that type of condition, and if the commission's okay, we can certainly have a discussion with fire personnel after this meeting, and if we can modify it or change it, we're certainly happy to do that if the commission.
yeah, and there's no guarantees. You know, it would be like an
I
after the fact,
understand.
work it out, or we could continue to meet with staff before any of this other rest of it is approved.
Yeah, I just, we're a little bit in shock that what we want to do, the additional requirements for sidewalks and landscaping and fencing and fire suppression, fire hydrants, more than doubles the cost at, you know, something that was $250,000 now is over $500,000. It makes us question the true value of the investment. So, yeah, I would like to be able to pursue that more afterwards, if possible.
Okay. So I think if you're okay with the other conditions, I understand what you've said with the costs, but we can't take those into account. But if you're okay with the other conditions, we would be able to move forward on this tonight, and then you would have to discuss those after the fact, because we can't pull that one out. I don't think we have the authority or the ability to.
We didn't receive the information until Friday, and so not a lot of time to digest and understand all the conditions.
Yeah, and if you're not comfortable with them, you know, we could continue it to the next meeting, and then you'd be able to meet with staff on these conditions to get further explanation. Or
I understand the other ones that you insist on sidewalks and landscaping and wrought iron fences. I was just a little taken aback about another $10,000 added on for a fire hydrant. So there's one in existence on the street corner. But that's all.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
I would move to adopt Planning Commission Resolution 5 approving LN 17-9. Find the project categorically with it.
I'll second.
I want to comment that it's good to start happening down there, so.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Porter, a second by Commissioner Marsh. Barely beat Larry to the second. For PLN 17-00019, allowing discussion, hopefully on the fire department's requirement for an additional hydrant to be discussed later. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that project has been approved.
Thank you.
Corey, does it say a fire hydrant? Where does it say fire hydrant?
Was
It says
informed that on a
approved
phone
on-site
call.
fire protection water system.
Yeah, I called to inquire what exactly that meant.
It said fire hydrant?
Well, you need to have a fire hydrant within 50 feet of the valve.
I suspect that's a state requirement.
We'll reach out to you to set up a meeting and see if there's other design alternatives. It may just be that a separation issue that maybe we can be redesigned to accommodate for it.
I tried contacting the person involved with something else.
Yeah, we'll definitely set up a discussion meeting to resolve that.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3 is look to being asked for a continuance. So with that, I'll open up the public hearing if anyone's here for item number 3. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and we will move this item to our September 13th Planning Commission meeting. According to the Brown Act, if anyone's here to speak to us in our public matter jurisdiction, now's the time. Anything? Nope. The school needs analysis. Any questions or comments on that item? No line? Okay, that's it. If there's any questions or comments from commissioners, we'll start with Commissioner Marsh.
No, I don't have nothing.
Porter. Huber. Commissioner Dew.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to say, as relates to former Georgia Air Force Base, any prudent thing that can be done in developing the former Georgia Air Force Base to bring in significant dollars to enhance and improve the budget of the city of Victorville, I am for. I am not convinced that a private school meets that criteria. So that's my closing comment. Thank you.
I have nothing. Is there any comments from staff? Wrapping up.
I did want to point out a couple months ago we had Midway Home Solutions on a new business item. It was supposed to come back to a future meeting. I've since reached out to the owner and tried to set up a meeting, but for some reason it may have just gone away on its own. But it may be an item that comes back in the future. I just wanted to update you that we just haven't heard back from them or their sign company. But if they do come back, it'll come back for a discussion item again to you.
Okay, thanks. I just saw that that sign package was on my desk today when I was cleaning, and I saw that, and I wondered what happened. Anything over here, staff? Thanks for being with us, Jennifer. Meeting adjourned.